Welcome to Podcast for Fun. This is the show where we dive into the passion, the process, and the journeys of creative storytellers as they bring their stories to life. I'm your host, Sophia, and today we are joined by a talented author, Brian John Skillen. Thank you so much for being here, Brian.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me on your show today. I'm really excited about this.
So let's start with you telling us a little bit about yourself and your work.
Sure. Yeah. My name is author Brian John Skillen, and I am the author of the Through a Field of Stars trilogy. Here's my first book, The Way Through a Field of Stars. And I never thought I'd be an author. I actually grew up with dyslexia and a third grade reading and spelling level. So I always say, God has a sense of humor. He made me very large, and I became a dancer, and he made me dyslexic, and I became an author. So pretty much I never expected to do it. But in 2016, I was doing a pilgrimage on something called the Camino de Santiago, which is an ancient pilgrimage that stretches across Spain. And I got to this small town called Casa Jerez, and it's this hilled city with a castle on top, and it looks amazing. It's so cool. And the stamp for the city was the Cross of Jerusalem, which has five Templar crosses on it. And I was like, oh, the Knights Templar. And the guy said, what do you know about the Knights Templar? And I said, I don't know. What do you know about the Knights Templar? And we got to this awesome conversation about the Templars and their history along the Camino. And as we were finishing up, he said, look for the clues the Templars left behind. After that, I was hooked. The next morning, I woke up, and I think I said before I was a dancer, I was on a dance tour. So I used to teach all over the world, and I had my dance shoes in my backpack, which were my most valuable things as a dancer. And I left those outside of a secondhand store, and I said, oh, I said to God, the universe, whatever, I said, I'll trade these in for a story. And after that, this book started to play like a movie in my head. The people I met became characters. The things I saw all wove their way into the secret code. And I would walk under the stars. So I'd usually wake up before the sun rose. I'd walk under the moon and stars and dictate into my microphone that just what I was this story, like it was like watching a movie. And then by the end, I dictated out this whole story. I got back home. But like I said, there was one problem. I grew up with dyslexia and a third grade reading and spelling levels. So I had to reteach myself pretty much the English language, essentially, like spelling and grammar and all that stuff. But I committed to writing 2,000 words a day no matter what. So I sat there and I would write 2,000 words a day. Sometimes it would take me the whole day, whatnot. But by the end of 50 days, I had this book that I thought was amazing. And like, this is the best thing ever. It's got inspired. Oh my goodness, so cool. But then I took it to the to impress her, and I gave her the book, and she read it, and she's like, it needs some work. And so we spent the next years learning everything we could about editing and formatting and just creating an amazing story. And we launched our first book with the Kickstarter book launch. We raised over $10,000 in 30 days for it. Went on to become an award-winning book. We won an Eric Hoffer Award, which is one of the most prestigious awards in the self-publishing world. And we became Amazon bestseller in many different categories. And then we went on and I went back for a second Camino, got the second book, and third Camino, got the third book, and now we have a complete trilogy.
Man, that's amazing. Did it feel like
Yeah,
a divine intervention or something when you traded the
that
shoes story?
that's kind of what it felt like because like I can't really explain what it was like. I mean, it was just like watching a movie. Like I saw all these things happening and all these things, I'd hear this little voice that's like, hey, go look over here.
Mm,
I'd look over there and there would be something. Or like another example of that, like I arrived in Lyon on Easter, or no, it was Good Friday. And they usually have all the chapels around all locked up, right? So you have
yeah.
your main chapel, but there's all these side alcove chapels. But
Mm.
because it was Easter, they had them open. And because it was open, I found something that went into the secret clue that I would have never seen otherwise. And so it's just like one thing after another kept adding up to this. And so, I was like, yeah, it was so cool. And my goal with the series is to inspire a million people to go walk the Camino. And when they do, I often have people that'll read the book and then they go to the Camino and they send me pictures of them in front of the castles or cathedrals. And they say it
Mm.
kind of makes it into a scavenger hunt where they're looking for all the different things from the books.
What is the clues that you're talking about?
Yeah, so like certain clues. So like one in one book, let me just find it. Yeah. So you see there? You see those?
Yes. What
So
is
that's what's called they're called green men, and those
green?
are all over the church in Lyon. And
Mhm.
it's a nature deity, and it's like, what is this nature deity doing inside this Catholic church, right?
Yeah.
But it also had ties in with the Templars and other stuff. And so I'd see things like that and just be like, whoa. Or there would be like, a Templar symbol or like chiseled into the wall. There be this coding system that I knew from another thing that I was doing. And I was just like, whoa, what's that doing here? So there's like all these different things, all these different clues that kind of went together. So my book is kind of like Da Vinci Code meets The Alchemist meets Lord of the Rings. And so
Mhm.
the Da Vinci Code part is you're trying to figure out the secret code as you're going, essentially.
So you said you're still probably like it's not like you're not dyslexic anymore, right? Or are you still
Yeah,
dyslexic?
still, yeah.
So as a kid, did
Yeah, I'm
you
still dyslexic. Did
keep
I
going?
read? No, I was read too, though. Like my dad was very, yeah, I didn't read. My dad read to me. He read me the Chronicles of Narnia when I was a kid. And
Uh-huh.
so, like, literally, I don't think I read my first book until like eighth or ninth grade. I was finally able to get all the way through one. But yeah, before that, and we didn't have audiobooks back then. So it was like, it was very hard, and I was tracked into the special education classes, and things like that. So, I didn't learn anything essentially. But then when I started dancing, my brain kind of, I think because of all the cross body stuff, it re-triggered something in my brain. Because
Mhm.
I would do swing dancing, like swing and blues dancing, exactly. And like I said, I taught in over 32 countries around the world. So what was a disadvantage in school was an advantage in dancing because I could look at whatever somebody was doing and turn it around backwards in my head and be able to do it. So like it's kind of funny. Something that you see as a disability is actually like a super ability and something else. You just have to find the right thing when you're going into it. But yeah, so I think that really helped with it. But still, even today, like my numbers get all backwards. Like I just sent out 30 or 40 books and I had to like triple check the addresses, just to make sure that like my numbers weren't backwards and my words weren't backwards. I even had the lady at the post office double check them for me. So yeah, so it's still something I work with, but thank God for Grammarly and other things like that that really help point out where the problems are.
You're kind of like a superhero, right? Because I feel like there's like heroes that like can't see, so now they're like super good at hearing. But you're like on the next level because you can't read properly, supposedly, but you write books, which is like the last thing people would
Yeah,
expect. And
yeah.
apparently,
Well, as I got older, it got better. Oh, like I said, as I got older, it got better. So I was able to read. I am able to read now.
Mhm.
But I do more audiobooks than not because it's still like I'm still like super slow and writing. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny. I never thought I would do this, but thank you for like the superhero. I just finished Percy Jackson and like his lead character is like dyslexic. I'm like, yeah, I'm an Olympian.
So what kind of books do you think any books inspire you when you write?
Absolutely. So for this book, I can definitely see how like the Da Vinci or the Alchemist inspired me because it's a
Mhm.
pilgrimage, so kind of has that adventure. Do you know the Alchemist, Paulo Coelho?
Could you explain it to me?
Yeah. So The Alchemist is a great book. It's about adventure and finding your inner purpose and stuff like that. And Paulo de Coelho, before he wrote his first book, he actually did the same pilgrimage that I did. And his first book was called The Pilgrimage, and it was based off of this pilgrimage that I did. So I kind of feel like a homage to him. And then Da Vinci Code, like I said, kind of inspired this too because of the secret code. And then Lord of the Rings, I'm just such a huge Lord of the Rings nerd. And
Uh-huh.
so like, Lord of the Rings, Frodo's on his adventure to get the ring there. That's what this is like. It's like you're on your own adventure, kind of going through. So those are some really big influences for my writing and just like what I like to read and stuff.
I have a question. For the pilgrimages, to me, in my mind, it feels like just like, not just, I mean that it's like a beautiful path and part of Spain. But is there like a story behind the pilgrimages? Is that what gave you the inspiration? Or was it the beautiful scenery?
Yeah, so the pilgrimage, so pretty much the story of it goes is that the body of Saint James is at the end of it,
Mm-hmm.
essentially. So, like during the medieval time period, so there's two ways to forgive sins. Like one, you could buy indulgences, which
Mm-hmm.
means you'd buy the forgiveness of your sins, and rich people would do that. But poor pilgrim had to go on a pilgrimage to, get the remission of sins. So you had a lot of people that would go on pilgrimages to get the forgiveness of sins. And kings and queens and all sorts of people have done the Camino de Santiago to go through. But yeah, the story goes is that St. James's uh, body is buried at the end, and the Knights Templar were originally set up to protect pilgrims along pilgrimage routes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they actually acted as the first international banking system. If you wanted to go to a pilgrimage, you'd go to your local Templar commandery, you'd give them your gold, like kind of putting it into a bank. They'd give you something called a credential, and you could take out money at different commanderies as you went. So they were like the first ATMs, like international banking system. And so I just found all this so interesting as I was going through it and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. But yeah, it's deep. Like the Camino is deep. It's amazing. It works on you in so many different ways. It's changed so many people's lives. And that's why I wanted to share it with as many people as possible.
What makes Saint James so special?
Well, he was one of the apostles of Jesus, and I think he was the first of the 12 to get martyred, I think. But yeah, so that's what makes that's what makes him so special.
Why did you go on that trip in the first place?
The very first time I went, I was on a dance tour in Europe, and I was in Spain, and my friend was like, "Oh, I had a couple of weeks." She's like, "Oh, you should go do this," and this was back in 2008, and so. I kind of looked it up. There wasn't much online about it at the time, and I ended up on like the wrong route. Like I ended up on the primitive route, which uh, it wasn't the path wasn't very clear. I got lost. I ended up like not talking to anybody for like a day and a half because I was like super lost. And then I ended up hurting my knees and I couldn't walk into Santiago on the last day. I had to take a bus. So I'd gone all these miles. And the very last day, like 10 kilometers, I had to take a bus because I couldn't walk anymore. And but it worked out okay because there was another lady in there from Denmark or something, and she
Mhm.
had MS and she'd been doing the Camino with her dog, like on their RV,
Mhm.
and she was just crying. Like I got in there and there's this old lady crying, and I walk up to her. I said, "Are you okay?" And she's just like bawling. I was like, "Can I hold you?" And so I went down there and I put my arm around her and just like held her. And I found out that, she has MS. Her husband had just died. She has no idea what she's doing next with her life, and she was utterly alone in the world.
Mhm.
And had I not gotten injured, I wouldn't have been able to be there to be for her at that time. And so it just was amazing what seemed like terrible turned into this just beautiful thing that I could be there for this lady that
Mhm.
was just like suffering so badly. But at that moment, I also vowed I'd come back again. And so in 2016, I'd gone through a terrible breakup. I was like, okay, it's time to go do the Camino again. And that's when
Mhm.
I did the, and then I got inspired to do this book.
Wow, I feel like it sounds like everything like happened for a reason, right? Can
It's
you hear me?
like, uh, yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, that's kind of the way the Camino is. There's a saying that the Camino doesn't always give you what you want, but it gives
Hmm.
you exactly what you need to fulfill your life's purpose.
Hmm.
And so like just like on my second Camino, like the second time I went, my plane was delayed by 5 days to get there.
Yeah.
And because there was a strike, an airplane strike going on. But when I arrived, I met the most amazing people that were perfect for my second book. And they were just so cool. And I couldn't think of having better people in there. And so it just kind of like worked out, everything just worked.
Do you have an example of a person you met in real life that you put into your book?
Yeah. So in my in my first book series, or my first book, you meet Andy and Claire Sinclair,
Hmm.
and they are based off of a Scottish brother and sister who are like drunk the whole time. So they just drank they drank a lot.
Uh-huh.
And can you still hear me okay? Yeah,
Yes.
you're still with me. So they were a Scottish brother and sister.
I think the network is a little bit glitchy,
So
but
they were
it should
a
be. I'm so sorry, I keep cutting
okay,
you off.
I'll just keep going. No, it's okay. No worries. So they were a Scottish brother and sister,
Uh-huh.
and they were just like drunk from 10 a.m. in the morning all day. And so they made their way into the book, and as I was walking with them, I found out that the brother was actually dying from cancer, and this was his like last big hurrah,
Uh-huh.
before the end, pretty much. And I also found out that his whole life he wanted to become a Knights Templar. So in the book, I may have made him into a Templar at one point inside the book. So I got
Uh-huh.
to fulfill that man's dream. I don't even know what their real names were, but in my book, I named them Andy and Claire. Like I don't remember what their real names were, but that's just one example.
What does it mean to be a Knights Templar?
So the Knights Templar were an ancient military order. They
Mm-hmm.
were a Christian military order. And like I said, they would protect pilgrimages. But in the year 1307, they were rounded up and disbanded pretty much. So it
Mm-hmm.
was illegal to be a Templar after that. So they kind of disappeared along with all of their treasure, which makes them very mysterious because they were like super wealthy, like incredibly wealthy. So they disappeared along with their treasure and everything. So like that's what a Templar was, like it was a knight who protected pilgrims, also defended the Holy Land. They were there in the Crusades, so they kind of they look like this, but they usually have on like a white tunic instead of a black tunic. Here, I can show you. So they're usually getting all my books here, like look like that
Mm-hmm. That looks so
essentially.
cool.
Oh, thank you. And you can see I had them hand painted. So that's book two in the back. I don't know if you can see, but that's the cover for book two.
Oh my God. Wait, did you paint this yourself? Or
No, I
someone?
did not. I hired an amazing painter to paint them for me.
But you had the vision, right? And then they based it
Yep.
off of it. So at the end of the
Yep.
day, it
And I
came out.
exactly. Yeah, I told him exactly what I wanted and showed him pictures of what I
Uh-huh.
wanted, and then he painted them from there.
So I'm just wondering though, what does it mean to be like a Knights Templar today? Because you said you met someone who wanted to be a Knights Templar, right?
Yeah, so the Templars don't really exist today.
Yeah.
Like not in the way they used to. But I mean, it doesn't mean, a little kid can say he wants to be King Arthur, right?
Yeah, true, true.
So it's like that sort of thing, right? But have you ever heard of the Freemasons?
I have not. You have to explain.
Masons? Well, there's this organization called the Masons,
Mm-hmm.
and if you go one way, you can actually become a Templar going that way, but it's not the same thing as these guys back then. So it's a
Mm-hmm.
new version essentially.
So that's what he wanted to be, the guy with the cancer.
Yeah, I mean he just wanted to like I think he wanted to be in the way that you want to be King Arthur when you're a kid, right? Or something like
Mhm.
that. Like he wanted to be an old time, old school no knight, um, which is cool.
Did you have that kind of dream when you were younger?
Oh yeah, of course I wanted to be a knight. Yeah, absolutely. It was so cool. I always wanted to be a knight. I always loved reading the King Arthur stories, or being read to me the King Arthur stories and like Sword in the Stone and
Uh-huh.
stuff like that, like those movies. Like so much fun. I always enjoyed it a lot.
You seem to like be really into history. Do you feel like that brought part of your writing inspirations?
Yeah, I like history. I like learning and I
Hmm.
like teaching. Like I like learning and teaching. And so, but this time of history just fascinates me because there was so much going on, so much changing in the world. It's like it's pretty incredible.
Hmm. I mean, history is kind of like
But yeah,
real
I don't know.
story.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
It's okay. Go ahead.
Now, I'm just gonna say that history is like an accumulation of real stories that happen. And honestly, like fiction and nonfiction is obviously like very, very different. However, um it's the stories are coming out of people with real lives, right? So in a sense, we're kind of writing based off of our experiences. So I feel like it's really
Hmm.
valuable. And also I noticed that people who are really knowledgeable in history are really good at writing realistic stories, like believable stories, because these actions are based off of the information that they've already acquired. So I feel like you're one of these people.
Yeah. Oh, I thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Yeah, it's history gives you a good starting point for where you're going through. And like I said, this is historical fiction or historical fantasy. So it is
Yeah.
historical, but I love fantasy. I love all that stuff. So there's fantastical elements that go in there in regards to the secret code, like magic sort of stuff,
Mhm.
because I love that too. But yeah, as far as like understanding history, if you understand history, you can create incredible stories. Like most of the best stories ever written are like history, but told from like on an alien world, but you're still using like the Roman Empire,
Mhm.
as your basis for going through and like what that looks like. So yeah, you're absolutely right.
Do you feel like you ever insert yourself in the book? Like your own character, like a character based off of
Yeah, a
yourself?
little bit. I think there's
Do you have an example?
yeah, I think there's a little bit of me inside every yeah, sure. I think there's a little bit of me inside every character in the book,
Uh-huh.
almost every character. Like Andy Sinclair, the drunk Scottish brother and sister, because I didn't know them very well. I
Yeah.
inserted parts of myself into him. Like I call him my inner fat boy, right? Because he always loves to eat and like he just loves life and and whatnot. And then ATN, he's he's my lead character. He's that dude there.
Uh-huh.
He's the lead male protagonist. And he's kind of an outsider. And so growing up, I felt like I was an outsider in a lot of different ways because of
Mhm.
my dyslexia and other things and whatnot. So I put some of that into there as well.
You say you were good at teaching. Were you teaching dance?
Hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I've taught dance in over 32 countries worldwide. They used to fly me around the world to go teach in a lot of different places.
Mm-hmm.
But the pandemic stopped that, right? When the pandemic happened, that stopped and I didn't know what I was going to do. And then all of a sudden I was like, "Oh yeah, I have this book." And so I decided to publish my book and we published the book and now that's also turned into a publishing company as well. So it's been great.
When did you start dancing?
I started dancing at the age of 15. By 18, I was teaching. By 20, I was teaching nationally, and by 22, I was teaching internationally.
Wow. So wait, why did you
Yeah, it was.
start?
Why did I start? I saw this
Yeah.
movie called Swing Kids,
Ha!
and I was like, I want to go do that, and I did.
What was the movie about?
It was kind of like set in Nazi Germany.
Uh-huh.
But the way that these kids rebelled was by dancing. So they would have these like underground dances that they had to go to because they were playing jazz music, which was from America. And
Yeah.
so that was outlawed there. So they had like all these underground dances, and it was so cool. I was like, that's so awesome. And so I had to go do it.
It feels rebellious. You're like, I need to be part of this right now. I need to be in this movie, right? I
Exactly.
feel
Well, and there was just so much joy in it. Like I love swing dance.
I feel the same way about when you
Go
told
ahead.
me, I felt the same way when you told me how when you write stories, you have like a bit of a movie going on in your head. That that's why
Mm,
I
yeah.
think I think I told you, but at the convention. But when I wrote my comic, I imagined it like I was just putting down the vision in my brain. That's why it looks like such a storyboard. Because
Awesome.
there's some scenes where it's literally just a character like scooping a bowl like a soup from a pot and putting it into her cup. It's like from like an upward shot. And I just imagine that scene t taking place in my head, and that's why there's like 20 panels of her just going like this. But it looks ridiculous. But I thought it looked cool because I was like, this is what I imagined if it was a movie. there would be a scene like this where
Yeah,
she just walks around, poor Sue. So that's what I put on
right?
the paper, right? And also, I feel like that brings up so much uniqueness.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, it's very true because you're giving people like a glimpse into your mind, you know? And I
Hmm.
always think, you're given these visions for a reason. It's like, and it's your vision, right? Like it was given to you for a reason. That's why I call it like your vision. You see it. Other people may not see it.
Hmm.
You see it. And it's your responsibility to get it out there into the world.
Yes. So was it hard because you're self-published, right?
Yeah, I'm self-published, but then we turned into a publishing company. So we own an imprint, and but yeah, when we first started, I sent out query letters to over 50 agents. I got back two rejection letters, and 48 other agents didn't even bother to write back to me. And I was like, all right, screw you guys. And so like I ran a Kickstarter for it, like I said, and we were able to
Yeah.
raise over $10,000 in 30 days for it. And I also found mentorship with I kept seeing this guy pop up and he was getting like 100,000, $200,000 on his Kickstarter. It's like, who is this guy? Well,
Yeah.
turns out he was the number one self-published fantasy author in the world at one point in time. He's a multi-New York Times bestselling author. And him and his wife were very kind to me.
Hmm.
They kind of sh taught me everything about publishing. And so I pretty much got their system for publishing, which was really cool. And so they shared that with me. And so that's why I share it with other people as
Hmm.
well, like kind of like some of the stuff that they taught me going through there. But yeah,
How
so we started out, but we did well, you know?
how did you even co get contact with those people, with that couple?
Well, you just take a chance, right? So back then I emailed them. I was like, "Hey, how are you guys doing this? Like this is things about relationships,
Mm.
essentially friendships and relationships and you know, and you have to remember too, everybody kind of starts in the place that you're at. And so yeah, you know, they're like, "Oh yeah, we know where you're at." And so
Hmm.
they really helped a lot.
So how long did it take till you got that 10K on Kickstarter?
30 days.
30 days? I thought you were gonna be like, oh,
Hmm.
5 years, but no, 30 days.
No.
That's
Yeah,
insane.
30 days. And we got like 8,000 for the or 9,000 for the next book and 8,000 for the last book. And so we kept doing that. And just to let you know too, like for that first book, most published books only sell 250 in a lifetime. With that first book, we'd already well sold way past that just with our Kickstarter alone. And
Hmm.
so like that just set us up for success with everything else as we were going forward.
What do you think, what you, like of all the things you did for that Kickstarter, what do you think made it like stand out so much?
I had a good video, like which really comes in there, but really it was about building the community first. So I knew exactly who I was targeting,
Like
which was
pilgrimage,
people who would, what's that?
the pilgrimage people, right? The people who went.
Exactly. So I targeted the pilgrimage people and I targeted people who like the Knights Templar. And
Uh-huh.
so I knew exactly who I was talking to. I knew exactly where they were at. And so I
Uh-huh.
advertised those spots and it worked.
And they're in Spain. Well, not all of them, because you're not in Spain, but
Yeah, no, about a 500,000 people a year walk the Camino. And they come from all over the world, like Korea, South Korea, Japan, China, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa. They come from all over the world, which is really cool.
so you traveled I mean, do you still travel a lot or
Yeah, we travel like, yeah, we go to Europe once or twice a year, and like we travel. We still travel, but not as much
Mhm.
as we did before.
Do you feel like all that traveling shaped
Oh,
your
are you with
perspective?
me?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I don't know why the Wi-Fi
Oh
is
no,
like this.
that's okay. Yeah, I heard. That's okay. So yeah, I definitely think all the traveling shaped my perspective.
Mhm.
Like the best advice you can ever give a writer is go live life, because that's what everything is based off of, like your experiences.
Hmm.
And so like go live, go have an adventure of your own, and write about it, or go to your library and just make up stories for all the people that you're seeing, like whatnot. So
I have a question. Do you ever face
yeah.
uh do you ever face writer's block?
If I ever do, I change my state. So if I'm sitting at my computer and I get writer's block, I go for a walk and I'll dictate into my microphone. So you have to change, like, because if you're just going to keep staring at that screen, it won't work. So you have to change, like, the way, like, your interactive way of doing it. Or I'll go someplace else and I'll write on my phone as opposed to
Mhm.
trying to be on the computer. And so that kind of just comes through like that.
Yeah, I do that too. I think I literally I go for a walk.
Cool.
That's like the exact same thing. Or I
Yeah.
go work out because I
Yeah.
feel like it refreshes me, right?
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Yeah. I agree with that. And you never know because then the ideas they just start flowing. The subconscious is so cool.
Hmm.
It just kind of goes.
Have you ever like turned a dream into a part of a book?
Not a dream, no. Have you?
Yes. For this one, actually.
Cool,
I don't know
cool. Oh, that's
what
great.
exactly dream, but I think I had a dream about some character like it was so random. It was like a robotic looking girl and she touched something and everything exploded or something and I was trying to run away from the explosion and then I was like, I need to write a story about this right now. And then I wrote this one.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. I do have like I find right before I go to bed, if I'm
Uh-huh.
writing a book, like right before I go to bed, that's when it starts playing in my head again, like when I get to that relaxed state. So I always have my phone next to my bed, so I can take little notes for the next day to start writing.
That's so smart. It's because like when you're subconscious, your subconscious mind like thinks up those ideas, right? A little bit.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah, I feel like I don't even have any responsibility. Like not responsibility, like I it just sort of happens without me, you know?
Hmm.
And then I have to figure out how to get them out of these situations. Like they get in these situations and they got to figure that out. But like I feel like it just goes.
Do you feel like you're kind of a spiritual person?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
In what ways?
Yeah. And that works its way. In what ways? Well, I mean, I'm Christian, like first off, but I've also studied like many other world religions as well, because it just
Mhm.
fascinates me. Like the human soul just fascinates me so much. Like
Mhm.
what is and like what are all these different philosophies? I think studying that is like the most noble study any of us have, like coming into it, because it's like really finding out the essence of like who and what you are and where we come from. And Gandhi always said like religion's like a mountain. It doesn't matter which way you go up, but then you reach the top. But like I think really choose your path and like learning it to the best of your abilities is something that's so cool and coming through.
What's some interesting things you've learned?
In which regard?
In religion, like, I know, were you Christian your whole life?
So I grew up Catholic and then in my teens I kind of walked away from it and studied like yogic philosophy and Buddhism and everything like that. And
Hmm.
then in my like early 20s, I started when I was touring a lot. The only thing that was consistent every place I went was church. So no matter where I went into the world, I could always find a church. And I was
Hmm.
alone a lot. So I'd go into this church and I just have these great conversations with God and just pray and be there. And it just like really kept me staying because when you're traveling that much, it's easy to lose yourself. But it was like my lifeline, kind of going through everything. And it made me really close and really just developed this amazing relationship with God, like in there.
Hmm.
And and there's a difference between like your relationship with God and like religion, so to speak. I think
Hmm.
even Jesus talks about that a lot in the Bible, when he's going in there, and that people oftentimes get like way bogged down into religion and forget about like what the essence of what it's supposed to be about is,
Hmm.
essentially. And my books kind of tackle that. Like, so my books you can read. as just like a fun adventure, or you can do a like a theological, philosophical deep dive and go in like super deep if you want to. So you can read it either way.
So it's like, is it like a bit of a existential? Is there existential aspects in your book?
Yeah, I guess you could say so, or just like really examining, because at this time
Hmm.
you have like the church is like the main authority in the world, and it's gotten really away, like it's become this just power hungry sort of thing, and like it gets away from a lot of like what the teachings are. But really on this pilgrimage, you really examine your soul a lot and everything as you're going through there, and you get to know God. Like I got to know God even deeper on the Camino. Like just so many amazing things happen, like one thing after another that you're like little miracles that you're like, how the heck did that just happen? Or, the person you judge the most has the biggest lesson for you. Like I'll give you an example.
Hmm.
Like one guy, I have a very keen sense of smell. And as I was walking on the Camino, I was like, "Oh my God, what is that smell? It smells terrible." And I turn around and it's this guy, and he's walking the Camino in jeans. And
Uh-huh.
it's this hot, sweltering summer day, and he's wearing jeans. I'm like, "Oh my God, dude, change your pants! Like you stink." And finally, like we get away from him. We stop for lunch. We start
Hmm.
walking again, and I smell that smell again. I was like, "Oh no, it's so terrible. It stinks so bad." But we start talking to him, and it
Hmm.
turns out that uh, he had left home, like he was from Italy, and he was at his house, and God told him to leave with nothing but the clothes on his back. And this kid left his home in Italy with nothing on his back and started walking the Camino from Italy. And he took nothing with him besides what he was wearing, and he had that much faith. He didn't even have money. Like he just went, and he'd been able to make it all the way from Italy halfway through Spain just with the clothes on his back and going through. And at that moment my heart broke up and open, because here I was like judging this person for how bad they smelled, when actually they just had such like belief and faith that they were actually going through here. So what I did is I had an extra pair of shorts, so I gave him a pair of shorts. So instead of judging him, I gave him something to make his life better. And it was just like one of those moments where it's like, wow, I really learned a lesson in humility then. And yeah, just kind of coming through.
That's so crazy. That's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, and in my mind it was like, it was like Jesus walking with me, and there I was judging Jesus like in the form of this person.
Hmm.
And but instead of judging, like I had the opportunity to be kind. I had the opportunity to give to him.
Hmm. I feel like in a way that was like the fact that you had a short in your bag also felt sounds like you were meant to be like meet that guy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I had three pairs of shorts, and really all you need is two, because you can wash one and wear the other one. And so I had a third pair. So it's like they were for him and they were just in my bag. So
Hmm. I feel like life either gives you a gift or gives you a lesson. That's how I try to look at everything.
hmm, that's a great way to look at it. It's so true. Another good way to look at it is everything happens for me, not to me. So if everything happens for you, that means even if you see something is wrong, it's for your benefit. So it's not happening to you. Oh my God, it's happening to me. It's terrible. But no, if you're like, oh, this happened for me, it must be for my best good in the end. It just changes like everything when you come through. Like I could have thought it was so terrible that, I didn't get traditional publishing for my books, but because of that, I've been able to help so many authors with their books who wouldn't have been able to publish them otherwise.
Hmm.
It's just been like this beautiful gift. Or I may have had to change something in this books, but like they're at such a point now where, people are literally going to Spain to walk this thing because they're reading it. So I don't know, it's cool.
I was gonna say something. What was I gonna say? Oh, when you ask, um, you know, the higher, I'd say sometimes, okay, like I wish to be stronger, right? Right? Like I
Mhm.
want to be like more strong. And then the world gives you opportunities to prove yourself that you're strong, if that makes sense. So if you wish
Yeah.
you're like, "Oh, I wish I can talk to people." Then the world will give you opportunities to talk to a lot of people, but you have to be the one who
Mhm.
steps up to those people and actually speak to them and actually acquire that power, if that makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah, you so like that comes into something else, which is like stewardship, right? So we're
Mm-hmm.
given like all these opportunities to be good stewards, and we can either accept them or not accept them. And if we accept them, then it's great. But if not, then I think those opportunities pass on to somebody else. So you're
Mm-hmm.
always giving these opportunities, but you have to take the step to go forward. Very true. Very, very true.
And I feel like that aspect comes also from like free will because you
Hmm.
can't be forced to do something. You have to do it on your own accord. That's why
Yep.
we get opportunities, not like the decision to do something, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly where free will comes into it.
Mm-hmm.
Is like, and you can choose, yeah. And I think we always know what the right choice is. Like deep down, that's
Yeah.
actually what my next book series is about. It's about
Mm.
like in this fantasy world, everybody has a dragon inside of them that comes out at 13. But that dragon is like that inner voice that speaks inside of you, but it's in dragon form. And whatnot. And other things in the world try to cut you off from listening to that voice, but that's the voice that leads you and guides you forward. So it's pretty cool coming in. So that's my next book series I'm working on.
What's it gonna be called?
It's called The Chronicles of Shiloh.
Ooh, that sounds
And
so.
book It's another trilogy, and book one is The Prophecy of Gemini.
When you write your stories, do you have an outline?
No, I'm a pantser, so I just go, it just kind of comes together.
Really? Oh yeah, because you said it's like a movie going on in your head and you just write it out, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
How
Yeah,
do you
so
keep yeah, sorry.
so I don't use an outline. I just go like I now I've started to kind of like write down the characters' names and spellings and like things about them so I don't forget that as I'm going. But as far as plot stuff, it just kind of goes.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever gotten like criticism from your book?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think every good writer always gets criticism on their books, because it's going to be for some people and not for other people,
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, I've gotten one-star review and the person said, "Oh, it just wasn't for me." I was like, "Well, that's not helpful. You got to tell me like what you did like so it could get better."
Yeah.
Uh, and I look at I once again I always look at it as something for me. So even if somebody gives me criticism, it's only to help me become a better writer when I'm in there because I won't make the same thing next time, or I'll think about what that person said next time to make my work better, essentially.
With fans, have you ever like had an interaction that affected you in a way?
Yeah, so at Chicago Comic Con, I had a guy read book one, he got it, and he
Mm-hmm.
waited all year, and he came back and he bought two and three online, and he had me sign them, and he came and he said, "You made me question original sin," which it's just like I actually affected some, and he was like 60 or 70 years old. And it was like my books actually had the ability to make somebody question something so like ingrained in different things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like, wow, I had the ability to do that. And interactions of like people saying, "Hey, you changed my life." Like I read these books and I went to Spain. Like
Mm-hmm.
this lady Lynetta, she did that. She was like, had gone through divorce. She read my book and she's like, "That's it. I'm going to Spain." And like even went to go visit people down in Brazil afterwards that she'd met on the Camino.
Wow. Wait,
Yeah,
is
I
it?
mean,
No.
these books these books are life-changing, the experience is life-changing.
That's like my dream that I want to be able to affect people like that.
I think you will.
I'll be like sometimes though when I wish for something and I work towards it and I get it, I forget to
Mm.
actually be grateful for it and I keep like I need to be in the present, right? If that makes sense.
Yeah, make sure that you celebrate. Like celebration is like a period on that thing. Like be grateful for it, celebrate, come
Hmm.
through, you know. That's what I always find. Whenever we used to call it like victory dances. So my wife and I love to dance. So if we had a great success, we do a victory dance and like dance with each other in celebration
Mhm.
of having it happen. And we'd share that dance with other people so we could share it with our community. So it's kind
Mhm.
of like our way of being grateful.
Oh my God, that's so romantic. I'm so jealous. Kidding. So, did you meet your wife after you wrote the book?
No, as I was finishing the first book, she was the girlfriend that read the book. So she was the one that read the book and was like, "Oh, need some work." And
Hmm.
so that, anyways, we became married later. So my plan worked, you
Hmm.
know. No, just joking. Um, but yeah, so she's been with me through all three books, pretty
Uh-huh.
much, and she's walked the Camino with me like three times. So I've taken her twice, maybe twice, to go walk the Camino with me,
Uh-huh. How did you meet her?
dancing.
Dance?
Yeah, yeah. So we met dancing.
So you said you were alone when you were like traveling the world, right?
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
that must mean that you had a lot of time to like think about yourself.
Tons of time to think. Tons of time to think and reflect and see things and grow as a person and come through. Because I would teach with local people. Like the way I did it was I would teach with local people, teach them how to teach the style of dance I was teaching, and they would
Yeah.
start building all different communities. So I'm all about empowering other people. So instead of me just traveling with a partner, I would go teach with locals and help them to create their own scenes there, and everything.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, so I was alone a lot of the time as I was going through because I'd only work on the weekends and then I'd have the rest of the week to myself and
Hmm.
just maybe I'd do some privates during the week, but just to go explore cities and go hang out, when everybody else was working and whatnot.
Did you have any cool experiences during that?
Oh,
I
so
mean,
many. Yeah, so many cool experiences.
do you
Yeah.
remember any examples?
Well, I mean, paragliding in the Swiss Alps, that was pretty cool. Like my two of my students, they would paraglide out there all the time. And they're like, "Hey, you want to go?" I was like, "Sure." And so we went and,
Oh.
you know, I still remember like I was strapped to this, French dude and like we ran off the side of a cliff and there's like all these cows everywhere and like then we start flying and it felt like one of my flying dreams because I don't like Superman fly in my dreams, but I more float.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of what it felt like when it was coming down.
Oh my God, that sounds so scary. Wow,
Oh, it's
I
so
can't
much fun.
believe that.
So much-
Have you
Yeah,
ever
so I mean
done,
that's example,
Mhm.
go ahead.
Sorry. Have you ever done like bungee jumping? Just out of curiosity.
No, I've done skydiving and paragliding. Those are the two that I've done. I haven't done bungee jumping yet.
Would you ever?
Maybe. I'm a little older now, so I don't know if I would or not. But yeah, I definitely paraglide again. Like I freaking loved it. It was so cool. It was so, so cool.
It sounds cool, but yeah, you sound very spontaneous, but that sounds like a good thing because I feel like it helps you experience new things. Like you're not afraid to step out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, I always wanted to do one thing every day that scared me when I was going because it pushed me to become better and pushed me just to kind of grow, essentially. And that's what
Mhm.
we're here to do. You don't want to get trapped in your little, like doing whatever. We're supposed to expand, right? Because what's the opposite of expanding? We start contracting or stay the same. It's like, so as long as you're growing, you're living, essentially.
I agree with you so much. I do the same thing. Every day I try to talk to a stranger because I said I wanted to be able to talk to anybody, and that means
That's,
anybody. So sometimes I see some guy, there was one guy who was like,
yeah,
I think advertising like Pizza Hut or something. And I liked his shirt, and I just felt that thought going across my head, but I was like, oh, I'm not gonna talk to him. Like, no, that means I have to talk to him because I just thought that I don't want to talk to him, so I have to say something now because clearly I'm scared for some reason. So I was like, I like your shirt, and we had like a little bit of a
yeah.
conversation. And he was saying like, oh, I'm trying to make money to like buy something for my daughter, and I was like, oh, that's so sweet. So, you know, I felt so like I was happy that I was able to talk to that person first of all, and I felt like I made that guy's day because after that he was smiling. Like before that, he seemed very tired, if that makes sense,
Yep.
you know. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
do you still try to
I
do
love that
something?
you were totally like a blessing.
Sorry.
Oh, I said I love that you were a total blessing in his life on that day. That's great.
Yeah, I'm so glad. I still do it, but sometimes I mess like I don't mess up. Like sometimes talk to someone and they have like a headphone in their ear, and I'm like, oops, they don't want to be bothered right now. I didn't notice.
Yeah,
So, do you
that's
still
great.
do things?
So I got to get running pretty soon here.
Oh, so sorry. Okay, then I have one last question. So, what's
Sure.
one advice you'd give to aspiring storytellers watching this right now?
I mean, I would say just go for it. Don't let anybody or anything stop you. You have a story inside you that needs to come out, and it was given to you for a reason, and do
Mhm.
it. Don't let anything stop you from doing it. Um, and if you're still looking for your story, go experience life.
Yes. And where can our awesome listeners find your work?
Yeah, so my website is brianjohnskillen.com. We're also available on Amazon. The first book in my series is The Way Through a Field of Stars, which looks backwards there. I mean, it looks normal to me, but backwards to you guys, right?
Yeah.
So The Way Through a Field of Stars. And so that's book one in my series as you come through there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing us your incredible insights and joining us today, Brian.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. It was really great to be here today.
And to our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with any fellow storytelling enthusiasts. And if you have any questions or topics you'd like me to explore, you can drop them in the comments or connect with me on any of my social medias at Podcast for Fun. Until next time, keep creating, keep dreaming, and we'll see you on the next episode of Podcast for Fun.